Hello friends, welcome to the first installment of your video resources and tutorials that you can use to complete this, the first proposal scene inspired by Pride and Prejudice 2005. If you still need the pattern for this tutorial, it's available at my shop in the description listed below. In this video, we'll just be covering the materials you'll need to complete this project. If you're already covered on that front, come back next time where we'll go over all the stitches that will be used in this project, along with some of the tricks that I used to make it. With that out of the way, let's dive right in. The first thing you're going to need are 2 embroidery hoops. This is arguably the most important step before we actually start working on our embroidery. You're going to want to make sure that both of the hoops line up nicely. You don't want one to be slightly smaller than the other, or for one to be warped in a funny way. You want them to be as close to the same size as possible. You should also compare the clasps and make sure that they are as similar as they can be. Next, you're going to want some fabric, preferably a woven fabric that doesn't have a whole lot of stretch to it. Something like cotton will work well. Also, if you're choosing to paint your fabric, you'll want to use something that will absorb the color nicely. Speaking of paint, which is completely optional, you'll want some acrylic paint in white, black, blue, and green to paint the background. Another option is to use chalk pastels for coloring the background, but there will be a whole video about painting your fabric in the near future. Next, we're going to need tulle. A dark tulle is going to work really well for blending into the background. Right now, I only have white tulle on hand, so I will be dyeing mine before I'm ready to start on my second hoop. The next thing you'll need is some felt. You'll want to pick a light, neutral color since we're going to be using it as a base for our temple. The temple is going to help give us so much more depth and dimension. Speaking of dimension, the next material you're going to want is some 18 gauge 1mm floral wire. I prefer paper wrapped wire because it allows for more surface for the thread to hold on to. I would also suggest to use wire cutters if you have them on hand. You can use scissors, but I don't find them as effective for trimming your wire down to size. Next is the thread. I use DMC 6-strand cotton thread. This pattern has a lot of subtle color changes in it, and all of the colors are listed in the pattern guide. The last sort of mandatory thing you will need are needles and scissors. I've never been good at keeping my needles straight. I normally just use whatever I have on hand, but when it comes to working on the temple, I would recommend a larger, thicker needle just so that there's less of a chance of your needle breaking as you work through multiple layers of felt. The next few items are completely optional. I think when it comes to embroidery that will stay in the hoop, it looks nicer when the hoop is darker. So you have the option to sand and stain your hoop if you want, with whichever stain you prefer, but I would suggest that you have that all set up before we start stitching. Again, the paint and the chalk pastels are optional if you want to paint the background of your fabric. The last thing listed in the guide is an embroidery stand. This is going to be a lengthy project, so a stand might be helpful if you don't have one already. I've jerry-rigged mine by adding a magnet for my needles and extra padding to ensure that it doesn't leave a mark on my fabric. But again, this is completely optional to you, it is only a suggestion. Just a few extra hacks. I embroider at my desk, so I keep this small little garbage can on my windowsill for all of the spare bits of thread, and I also use a plush as a prop for my elbow to make it more comfortable for myself. I hope you found this video about materials you'll want for this project helpful. Again, if you don't have the pattern yet and you want it, it is available in my shop, and there will be videos for every step of this project that you can use for help if you run into any complications along the way. Thanks so much, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!